intention is actually not to do much of a speech, but to bring you with me to Estonia. Now, I'm certain for many, many people here, you might have not heard about Estonia before. And that's perfectly fine, because Estonia is not as big and powerful as UK. And so at the very same time, probably the reason why innovation is an area where Estonia's voice would get heard is because that is what Estonia is known for. And so I will take you for a walk around Estonia, and specifically around Estonia in the field of innovation, in the field of startup, in the field of doing business in a small country, in a small way that ends up being powerful in the world. And so that's the intention of my discussion with you this morning. And so let's try and place Estonia, because clearly it's not a very well-known place. So we are south of Finland, we are west of Sweden, we are north of Latvia, and we are to the west of Russia. And so as such, we form the eastern border of NATO. We are a population of 1.3 million. All right, so 1.3 million. How many of you live in counties that have populations larger than 1.3 million? Most of you. Countries and counties. Now, the reason I'll ask more about counties is because with devolution, a lot of the things that would normally occur only at a country level are now at county level. And very often speaking county to county is easier, and understanding that Estonia in essence is like a county. But it's a country with a GDP of $19,700 per capita. And it's a country that probably many of you who studied history longer time back, you didn't even hear about Estonia because it only regained its independence in 1991. So everything that Estonia has achieved is since 1991. And so looking at the entrepreneurial world of Estonia, it is not having centuries of family businesses passed on from one to the other, which is quite common in some of the older established places like UK for that matter. All of our wealth, all of our entrepreneurship is as young as most of Kenyan is. So comparing one to one is often quite easy in that sense. And at the same time, while Estonia is well known for its technology, it only actually derives 7% of its GDP from ICT, because Estonia doesn't consider ICT to be the business. It considers it as the enabler of the business. And so as such, Estonia then also has made its way to some of the top ranks in the world. And we'll come back to the number one, which is number one in tax competitiveness. This is one of the reasons why our startup environment is very attractive to every other startup that is serious about their business. There is a flat tax rate of 20%, and the first 5 years of a company's existence, there is no tax, because that's the time when the company really needs all its money to make it or break it. And so a couple of other number ones there, but that's really the most critical one to the conversation around innovation. And the other one which is of importance is education. And we consider our children to be one of the most important assets that our country has. We invest in them because that is who we need to run the country. And so one of the things that you can see is robotics and programming for kids. Okay, so there you might think, okay, yes, so let's say teenagers, by the time they're in high school, they should learn some. No. In Estonia, it is considered as part of the basic literacy. So you learn to read, you learn to write, you learn to code. It is taught from kindergarten together with the rest of the basic literacy skills. And so it's, at the same time, it's also considered a lifelong path. My mother, who just turned 80, a couple of years ago, she taught herself how to do voice and video editing on computer, because she just needed to do some presentations that required that. And so in Estonia, it's nothing strange for a woman around 80 to do something of that kind. And so what we understand really when it comes to anything to do with technology, it's more about the leadership that shines the light than all the money in the world, because Estonia is not, from the start off, was not a rich country. And even now, compared to many of the other leading European countries, it's not a wealthy country, but it's more about what the leaders see as necessary and relevant. And so with that, I want to come to Garage 48. Garage 48 is one of the many vehicles that is used in Estonia to drive innovation. And I know you have had hackathon as part of this event here. In Estonia, hackathons occur multiple times a year. And they have various themes, and the whole essence of it is that from zero, within 48 hours, you walk out with a prototype. And if you tap the video, we'll just look at this for a moment. Somebody with the tap to the video there. And so this is actually what I want us to talk about. So this was the first Garage 48 was held 8 years ago, and at that point in time, it invited 40 developers, 20 designers, 10 mobile developers, 50 marketing wizards, and 10 visionary entrepreneurs. In Estonian context, there is nothing to innovate if you don't have a client. And so in the Estonian context, the client comes, places its problem in front of the 90 people, and the 90 people will say, oh, this problem speaks to me, but I am only a designer. I need a developer. And the developer designer will sit down and say, yep, but for us to take it to market, we need people who know markets. We need to know more about the financial scenario relating to this specific innovation, and so on and so forth. So with that in mind, it's in Estonia, it's always designed towards a specific need that will have an economic return in the end of the 48 hours. And so that the first event was held 8 years ago. This is the last one on the list from last year's event. There are 21 problems that were placed in front of the innovators, and I'll walk you through one of the solutions, because the solutions that are looked for, most of the time they're very real and tangible. Even if you look at this one here, which is the number 21 from last year's event, is being able to find something that you normally have with you, but you often forget, and so the solution provides that for you. But this is so basically also here you can see that anytime any of the solutions are being looked at, so these are now at the end when the solution is already invented, you can see that the team members consist of various roles, various specialists, because they need to complement one another. Estonia takes specialization very seriously, meaning that a software company, for example, will develop only softwares. They will not sell cabling and will not sell laptops and computers. And if I do some form of technology. It means that I can also develop your website, and I can modify software. And so in Estonia, everybody is very specialized. And you can see also that from the setup of the teams. But so the specific team I want to follow is the winner of last year's one of the hackathons. Now there are several various hackathons of Garage 48 events. There are some that specialize on military solutions. There are some that specialize on supporting women in technology. There are some that specialize in looking at the fintech field, etc. But this specific one was around actually developing hardware. And so there is a specific solution that was being sought. And these are pieces out of a blog about that. And you can see the event has grown much bigger. This is the audience when the problem is being pitched, and so you can also see that it's not only for young people. Actually, people who have already employment are actually sent there by their bosses because it freshens their mind. It allows them new experiences. And so the problem was that the Estonian military has quite a number of vehicles, and they all have, of course, batteries. And those batteries, you don't know when you need to actually start the vehicle, whether the vehicle will start. What's the battery capacity? Is it able to hold charge? Is it able to charge? Is it able to start? And so they presented that problem to the Garage 48 event. And from there, 24 hours went into the initial discussions, working on materials, because all of it needs to come and end up with a prototype in the end. And 48 hours later, there was a solution that was ready to go to market. And the military was ready to pay for it, because that's the critical part. Innovation is exciting when you know that you can actually straight away convert it into an income. You can earn your money, you can employ. And so this is the life cycle that occurs. But and then after that it goes straight into the Estonian startup space. Estonian startups, and so we are looking at 550 startups. Population 1.3 million. It has created, and this is just 1 year, it has created 4,700 jobs in a population of 1.3 million. And it raised over 975 million in the last 12 years, out of which 90% are foreign funds that are coming into the country. So that's the strength of Estonian startup environment. And in order to win in the Estonian startup environment, of course, one needs very strong centers. And so when you're looking at setting up centers in a population of 1.3 million, Estonia has 4 very strong centers that support innovation, that support incubation, and are supportive of startups. But having physical structures, brick and mortar doesn't do the trick. What does the trick is access to some of our own unicorns. And so in all the startup centers, okay, many of you might not know Skype is an Estonian product. Thank you for using an Estonian product. Like we said, Estonia is small, but its reach often globally is much bigger than we physically are. Thank you for using Taxify, which is an Estonian product. And so in Estonian startup environment, there is always availability of mentorship from our unicorn leaders. And it's very informal. You come into the startup workspace, and one day you find one of the Skype CEOs, founders, who gone on to do other things. He's just there, and he's just available to chat over coffee, be of resource to you. And some of you might not know TransferWise. If you don't, and you're doing international money transfer, you're losing so much money. TransferWise, it's in UK they had a very interesting advert. They were stripping banks naked. And Pipedrive Pro, some of you are using it for managing your business processes. So the access to this is very critical in Estonia, and that's what makes the difference. If you tap the video, I'm going to talk over this video. It's muted, and this is one of the other critical components in Estonian startup ecosystem. Startups start off in high schools. All high schools in Estonia have a program that encourages children to set up businesses, and the businesses are set up. This is a 16-year-old boy who is the marketing specialist for wooden watches, and the wooden watches were initially handmade. They continued making them by hand for several years, and it gets a lot of support from our leaders as well. Our Prime Minister for years, his international gift was the wooden watch from these boys. And so that kind of support to understanding the need to develop entrepreneurship and innovation always doesn't have to be in the fintech. It doesn't always need to consist of code. It's the fact that you think of something that could be viable economically. And then one of the other things that we have is various innovation centers that then allow for those, and specifically talking now of coast, because in Nairobi most of the businesses are centered in Nairobi. But Estonia has areas where businesses might be out in the countryside, but they need a central place where somebody can come see what they do. And so we have this Spark Demo Center that has innovation from southern Estonia, and they display the various boards, the businesses themselves design their stands, and there's always somebody there to take somebody around and explain what the businesses are. And so this is one of the key interventions to be able to grow, particularly an area that is out of the capital, to have the necessary connections and have a visible place where people can come. And this is one of the innovations from that specific center. If you can tap the video for me, please. A startup that started off, this might have voice, but it doesn't have now. Okay, so I'll explain it. So there is this guy whose daughter kept bugging him that she wants a beautiful mural on her bedroom wall. And he said, look, I can't really paint myself, but I have access to technology. And I can think of a way to create murals for my daughter or for any huge surfaces that are direct from my mobile phone onto chimneys, onto walls, onto anything. And so this is one of the innovations that is displayed in the Southern Estonian Innovation Center that basically has spaces and has visitors, and they have maker labs, because I think maker labs are one of the other important components where it's possible to come and do your prototypes, because without prototypes you can't sell. Without tools that are very often more expensive than a startup can afford, all innovations will only be mobile phone apps. Hardly any will be in a form that is huge and tangible. And and so Estonia considers innovation important. We legalize things as we see them coming forward. We already have legalized self-drive buses in Estonia. We don't have them yet, but we know they're coming, so we always look forward, we look ahead, and we're ready for it. And for example, in Estonia, this is your G4S courier doing your delivery to your house. So follow our path. Estonia and Kenya Facebook page always has updates. Thank you very much.